Okay, so we're in chapter 3, Criminology of Computer Crime. We were talking about theories and kind of the underpinnings of why someone might do a computer crime. By the time you get done with this chapter, you'll be able to discuss the tenets of choice theory, including routine activities theory, describe the assumptions of deterrence theory, discuss the impact of personality disorders on crime, discuss the major social structure theories that apply to digital crime, discuss the learning and social control theories that apply to digital crime, and describe the relationship between terrorism and political theory. All right, so let's go ahead and all right, so choice theory. So what choice theory is basically I'm going to commit this crime because I'm not really afraid of the outcome. And this has happened a lot in computer crime because computer crime is not seen as a violent crime. It's seen as a white collar crime. It's seen as kids out there messing around, things such that. And a lot of people also don't see the harm that a computer crime does. For example, someone steals a song, or you go on your computer possibly, and you find some songs that you've taken. What really harm? You made a copy of another file, and now you have a song. So who's really getting hurt here? We'll talk a little bit more about that as we go through the weeks here. But it's that there's people really don't see the harm in what they're doing or the risk attached to the crime they're committing. So choice theory really comes down to allowing someone to kind of believe that they're not going to be harmed by the crime that they commit if they do get caught. And secondly, or to add on to that, a really good example of how choice theory kind of abated some crime was back in China 10 years ago. Political state hackers and computer hackers, basically they were told that if you committed a crime and you hacked your own government, they would put you to death. So there was a death penalty associated with committing a computer crime. When that happened, the computer crimes dropped off significantly because people saw, dying for hacking was not that pleasurable of a thought. So there was a heavy risk to hacking your government. Um, and I don't know what the actual statistics were. I went on the web to see if I could find it. I couldn't find any actual cases where people were actually put to death. But I think just the mere fact that someone risked being put to death was probably, provided them that choice not to do something. Choice theory became popular in the 1970s, basically for three reasons. The positive school began to be questioned, and basically what the positive school was, that there were traits that belonged to criminals, that people could be put away, but they could be rehabilitated. And in the 60s and 70s, the country was going through a traumatic kind of episode with the Vietnam War. Coming out of the 1950s, we were very pro-government, and now we were moving into the 60s and 70s where a lot of people were anti-government and had no use for the government, and didn't see laws and crimes the same way that people looked at them back in the 50s. And the practice of rehabilitation came under attack. People started stating, or basically saying, these people are not being rehabilitated, and it's just a waste of time. It's a waste of resources. Why are we worrying about rehabilitation? Let's just incarcerate, give them stiff penalties, tough penalties, put them away, because we know when they come back out, they're going to have one, they're either going to be a better criminal because they've learned new things, or two, they're going to learn new crimes that they can commit. And they don't see a pattern. Recidivism started growing as well during that time period. So rehabilitation became questioned by many. Um, Choice theory have significant policy implications. Choice theorists argue that since the offender has made a rational choice, the focus should be on the offense committed and not the offender. And this is really kind of important, and this is something that you want to kind of remember, because this is really where you find a lot of our stuff is this little block right here. In a lot of crimes, the focus really is on the offender and why the offender did something, and not on the crime. And when you start using choice theory, now we have to start looking at the crime. So for example, you got your 10-year-old that hacks a website, and you feel so sorry for that 10-year-old because he's just misguided. Well, he may be, but then again, he may not be. And we start seeing some changes in our rules as this theory started going through. We started seeing some differences in the way we actually kind of prosecuted and put people away. Types of choice theory policy include mandatory sentencing, the 3 strikes and your outlaws. Again, we're trying to put some teeth into the laws to prevent people from repeating. Trying to put that fear out there. Now on page 44 of your book, we move into something called routine activities. And routine activity theory was developed by Cohen and Felsen, and Cohen and Felsen argued that there's always a steady supply of offenders who are motivated to commit a crime. And when you have this person or this offender, basically you have 3 traits that kind of follow along with this individual. 1, they're motivated. 2, they have a suitable target. And 3, there's nothing blocking them from doing what they want to do. So looking at the 3 factors, you have a motivated offender. So I have a hacker, or I have somebody who wants to do some type of money laundering or child pornography. They find a suitable target, find someone that they can victimize, and there's no controls that prevent me from hacking into someone's computer, or there's not a good set of controls. The guardians basically aren't there to protect the hacker from coming into that network, or the hacker from doing what they want to do. Okay, and then Cohen and Felsen both say these 3 factors must be present in order for this crime to occur, and that makes sense. You have to have a motivated person, somebody that's willing to apply that choice theory and say it's the risk and the reward is there's a greater reward than the risk. The suitable target, finding that person or that thing that you want to attack, business, whatever, and the absence of a capable guardian. Whether or not that network is going to allow you to or not get into that. Or as it says in the slide here, and as we've kind of alluded up to this point, rapid expansion of technology has increased the number of available targets. That's very true. If you think about it, we kind of exploded out into the internet in 2004. In fact, I was probably in my 4th year at teaching at Fort McClellan, Alabama, and I was in charge of the computer crime technologies section at that point. And at that point, we were teaching computer fraud, basically going through Lotus 1, 2, 3 and stuff like that. And then 2004 came along, 2004 and 5, and this thing called the internet started appearing, and we started hearing about this ability to communicate or connect on computers, and you could see this new thing called HTML, and it was all network based. And I remember getting out, I think we went to, at that time it was the 4 or 5 websites that you could go to that really had anything on them, and we got done with it. We said, wow, that's interesting, mildly interesting, but what can you do with the internet? Well, as everybody knows now, you do everything with the internet. So the rapid expansion of technology over a short period of time, since 94 and 95, we've just seen an explosion. And last month I was over in Estonia, and we're talking about the disruption of pipelines, and we're talking about how technology and emergency room are used to potentially commit murder and all this other kind of things that you never would have thought of in 1994. So having this expansion gives the criminals a much broader kind of swath of people to go after. And then without adequate software protection, there's a lack of capable guardians. Okay, I don't have my antivirus on. I don't have things on that are tools on that I need to protect my network. Um, so or I bypass them. So I want to be able to do my latest game program, and the IT department doesn't allow me to, so I turn off certain things so I can get to my game, and I open up holes on my network, which now expose me to whatever criminal activity may come at me. And then an understanding. One of the other things you really need to put in here too is a lack of understanding. Understanding and intelligence can be a part of this capable gardening. I'm not saying that there are people out there that are stupid or anything like that. What I'm saying is intellect when it comes to understanding how computers work, how systems work, things such as that. Um, Real easy one. Microsoft calls you and says, hey, we notice you're having a problem on your network. We're going to help you out. Give us your username and password so we can watch you on the network. Next thing you know, your computer's locked up and you're paying somebody big money to unlock your computer. Well, how did they get there? Well, you told them, because Microsoft will never call you. Microsoft doesn't call people and help them out like that. So people's understanding of how computers can be used, and understanding what people use computers for in computer crime is extremely important. Um, and there are motivators, offenders such as hackers all over the world. I mean, that as much as the victimization population or the victim population has grown, so has your criminal population. You have all kinds of different hackers. You used to have guys that were basically stealing long distance phone calls. That was pretty much what the early on kind of blue box and brown box and old, what they call the old guard hackers used to do. They'd rip off Ma Bell and that was about it. Well, now that's blown up into your political hackers and your state-sponsored hackers and your malware writers, your virus writers, your pornographers. The list kind of goes on and on. So the population has grown, but as kind of will be a thread that goes through here, what population hasn't grown, and that's the computer crime investigators. And computer crime investigators are still, dealing with the same manpower that their departments have had for years, but we're watching an explosion or growth of new computer crimes, which is pretty much overwhelming most of the law enforcement agencies out there. And that's why this partnership between law enforcement and corporate IT is becoming so important, and that's why the military has jumped in. And you see commercials now showing computer technologists kind of doing things and being cool in the army. All right, deterrence theory. Kind of like rational choice theory. Choice is basically, it's based on perceived risks and the benefits of committing the crime. If the risks outweigh the benefits, the offender will be deterred from the criminal act. Two types, basically. General deterrence seeks to deter would-be offenders from committing criminal acts because of the threat of punishment. Again, go back to our Chinese hackers. Hack me and I will kill you. So that's a deterrence. You're definitely twice before you do something. And then specific deterrence. Specific deterrence is designed to impose a sanction on a convicted offender in order to prevent him or her from continuing to commit. This is our probation and parole system. Probation and parole allow us to go out and use tools that will scan someone's computer very quickly and rapidly, and allow us to see if someone is re-violating or doing something that they're not allowed to do. And certain rights are taken away from someone on parole or probation that allow an investigator to go in and do that kind of stuff. There are a lot of people out there that don't agree with this system. They think it's an overreach of government, but deterrence theory has worked and it's been very effective, especially when it comes to child pornographers and people like that. Identifying them early when they start going, back down into the adult porn, to the younger adult porn, to the very young adult porn, to now illegal and etc. So you can hopefully catch them prior to getting into the lower end spectrum that you don't want them back in. Oop, sorry about that. All right, So then we have psychological theories. Several psychological theories have been applied to criminal activity. Moral development theories, personal disorder theories. These are theories that kind of talk about the core values and the core things that make up the person. So under our moral development theory, the theories contend that there are differences between the moral beliefs of criminals and non-criminals, and it specify these three focuses on cognitive development. Cognitive development theory assumes that individuals develop in a sequential manner, and that brings us into Kohlberg's 6 stages of moral development. So if we go over onto page 48 in your book, you'll see the 6 stages that we're talking about. And Kohlberg's stages of moral development, basically the first, there are probably 3, 4. These are all passed through basically as a young adolescent. Punishment and obedience stage, hedonistic orientation stage. The right corresponds to seeing one's own needs met, taking responsibility for oneself and allowing others to do the same. So this is going back to taking ownership for what you do. You sow what you reap. All those lessons that we give our kids. Okay, interpersonal concordance stage, the ability or having good intentions and motives and being concerned for others. Okay, now we're acting as a part of a social order or within a social order. Our law and order orientation stage. This is our understanding of what's right and what's wrong. What's our duty within the society that we're dealing with. Can I commit? If I commit this act, is it a criminal act or a criminal offense, etc. So you see those first 4. Those 4 are basically what we grow up. This is our growth stage, our teens, and then the other stages after that, we move through in later parts of our life. The social contract. Right is based on upholding the rules and values agreed upon by society, social contracts. So now you have to have a greater understanding of how society works. So now you're a part of a social order. You understand, what it is that the social environment around you requires. And then orientation to universal ethical principles stage. Right is assumed obligation to principles such as justice and equality, which apply to all individuals. The individual recognizes the moral rightness of behavior. This is almost constitutional. So we start looking at, the constitutional right and wrong, or the constitutionality of some of the things that we can do as law enforcement, or as federal employees, and working for the government. So Kohlberg's 6 stages of moral development basically shows a staging through of all the different kind of layers that someone goes through in their growth of understanding of right and wrong. And that's basically what it comes down to. And this then goes back and applies into your choice theory and your deterrence theory, and it applies those parameters to you so you're doing something wrong. Is there a risk? Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to commit this crime. So my law and order orientation stage is going to tell me, what do I do in right and wrong? Do I commit a crime, or do I follow what society tells me to do? And again, this is going back to these 6 stages. And some people learn these stages, and some people don't learn these stages the way they should. And that becomes one of the problems that we have when we're dealing with people. Is some people are not trained or taught in those first 4 stages to respect or IT and other people the same way. Kind of adversely to that is personality disorders. Personality or the psychological or theories for personality disorders, we start looking at things that someone may or may not be able to change within themselves. They may have a predisposition to certain things. For example, there's many that theorize that being a pedophile is a DNA related thing, that some people just are born to seek children sexually. So if someone has that psychological development, there is no rehabilitation for that. There's not going to be. It's a DNA thing. It'd be like trying to change someone's color. It's not going to, it's not going to happen. So when we start looking at these disorders, things like extroversion, impulsivity, lack of self-control, assertiveness, these are all things that make up kind of some of the reasons why someone commits a crime. Because extroversion and impulsivity, I see a candy bar, I steal the candy bar, I run out of the store. It's an impulse. It's something that I couldn't control. Lack of self-control. I'm on the child website, and now I start looking at children that are underage, or I come across somebody's bank card accidentally. I don't have the self-control to say no. I'm not going to go after that financial or commit a financial fraud. And the assertiveness, putting yourself in front of others and taking control of things that you may or may not be able or allowed to take control of. Again, these are considered to be personality disorders if you're not kind of applying them in the right way. Psychological theories have tried to. I can go back to when I was on the task force, child pornography task force in 1999, 2000, 2001 time frame. I was on for about 4 years, almost 5 years, and you talk to pedophiles quite often, obviously, and it's amazing the stories that you hear. They come from all walks of life. I have a very good friend who arrested a priest, a rabbi, and a car salesman, which sounds like started a really great joke, but he arrested them on the same day in the same bar in the same sting. It's crazy. The people are very normal, and then they have this other dark side that nobody sees. It says here it's unclear why people become pedophiles. Some people say the internet introduced them to being a pedophile. In fact, it was a real good court case where the guy tried to blame America Online. He said, when that 3.5-inch floppy disk came to me and I plugged it into my computer and I got online for the first time, I saw my very first image of child pornography and I was hooked. So there's kind of a dilemma that we run into, and if you look on page 49, kind of down at the bottom there, it says that there's kind of a conundrum that's caused is whether or not the individual is a technologist that would turn to pedophilia, or if he's a pedophile that realized that or going online was the easiest way to get to the things that he wants to look at. And then most experts agree that pedophiles develop sexual interest over a long period of time, and that was definitely my experience with it. We saw a definite, probably 3-4 years of history where the individual started out with the adult porn. The adult porn got younger and younger and younger, and it was kind of what we call a criminal nexus, at a point where they were going younger and younger and kind of crossed the law enforcement scope. And if they didn't get caught in that law enforcement scope, and then they got away with it, and again, you go back to your choice theory, the risks drop because they got away with it the first time. They do it a second time, they get away with it the second time. So they start getting bolder and bolder. And again, the risk, for the very first one that they do, they look at an image of child porn, then they sit there wait for the FBI to show up, and the FBI doesn't show up, so the risk drops. So the next time they do it, next time they get bolder and bolder, and normally that's when they cross the law enforcement scope, and that's when we see them on the radar and say, oh yeah, here's this guy, he's not taking the same protocols anymore and the protections anymore, and now we see him. And that happens a lot with computer crime. People see computer crime, they don't get caught, they're emboldened by what it is they're doing. Many pedophiles have been exposed to some type of sexual abuse or trauma during childhood. This is pretty much common across the board, but there's also a group of pedophiles that have not been exposed or abused or traumatized during childhood. They just had that predilection for children. And a lot of people say it's a male oriented, and it used to be, but you're seeing more and more females as child molesters and child pornographers than you ever saw in the past. So that's also really a big change. Social structure. Through the years, social structure theories have been modified and expanded to explain criminal behavior by all classes. And what we're talking about in social structure here is where do you fit in society? Are you the upper tier rich that basically has everything you want, and therefore your social status allows you to do anything you want, and you feel kind of like you're above the law? Or are you that person that's impoverished, all the way at the very bottom, homeless, that does anything they can to survive on a daily basis, which may lead you to criminal activity? All right. So the first thing we're going to talk about when we start talking about that is something called strain. And strain theory really saw crime as a result of lack of opportunity. So someone is born into poverty. They see themselves in poverty, but when they look around on the internet or they're in school, they see people with nicer things, and they realize that their means are they will never have those things. So the only way they can get those things is by committing a crime or doing something that allows them to get that. Okay, so Robert, his version of strain theory states that the cultural goal of the American society is economic success. Everybody wants to be rich. The goal is reached through accepted means such as education, occupation, and deferral of gratification. So in other words, we follow the rules. We get a job, and our job gets us a paycheck, and we are able to create a good living for ourselves. And that will bring the things that you want. The problem is, in Merton's theory, is the lower class has less access to education and good jobs. So somebody that may be impoverished may never get an opportunity to get a job. They may not ever leave the family kind of business or activity. For example, somebody that is born on a farm, and this happened a lot in kind of the crossover from the industrial to from the agriculture to industrial revolution in the late early 1900s, when we saw farmers leave the fields and go and start punching widgets out on a factory line. The farmers didn't need educated children. What they needed was farmhands. So school became less of a priority. There really wasn't a priority for them. So you saw children not being educated. And then that child would grow up, and then he would be frustrated. You always see the movies where the kids in the farm fields going, "I'm leaving this place. I'm getting out of here, doing something with my life," and and the whole drama of them never leaving. So this may lead them to do criminal activity to get themselves out of what they're doing. Strain theory in Merton's world is sometimes called blocked opportunity theory. They may not have the access to the tools that allow them to escalate themselves in society. And Merton basically, he alludes to 5 adaptation: conformity, ritualism, innovation, retreatism, and rebellion. And rebellion is really where you find your criminal activity going on. And if you look in your book on page 54, you're going to see these terms. So conformity means hey, I accept it. This is who I am. I'm going to follow the rules, do my best, and hopefully one day I will break out and I will be able to make the living I want. The ritualism, as we start looking at the different theories. So ritualism, innovation, these are both close to one another, and what they basically say is, if I'm going to do so, I can do other things to create my opportunity. I can be innovative. I can maybe I can sell newspapers, or I come up with a product, or I do something that allows me to kind of escape out of my little box here. So the strain theory here would be that, yeah, you're constrained in your environment, but there are ways for you to get out. Retreatism is kind of a, well, defeatist. I'm not going to do anything. Nobody's going to affect me. And you see this in generational welfare families, families that have decided that there's no need for school, there's no need to move forward. They simply live off the government, and that's the easiest thing to do, and there's no hope or future. So they just become, kind of a product of our society's welfare system. And you'll see generation after generation after generation follow in those steps. And then we have the rebellious. These are our computer criminals. These are the guys that say, you know what, had enough. You got something that I want. I'm going to take what I want. You don't deserve to have the things that you have. I should be able to have the same thing you have. So therefore, I'm going to go ahead and take, or I'm going to go ahead and, figure a way of getting those things that I want. White collar crime and strain theory. Contemporary strain theorists have sought to extend strain theory in order to explain the instrumental crimes of middle and high class individuals, but finding that what they have termed the relative deprivation experienced by a person of higher economic class. This is also known as the Robin Hood effect. Steal from the rich, give to the poor. Most of the time, people steal from the rich and give to themselves. So this contemporary kind of mindset is, if you're in that position, there's a good possibility that you're going to strike out, that you are going to commit some type of crime, to make up the difference between you and what you were not given by society. Another one is general strain theory. Agnew's general strain theory is developed by Robert Agnew. He attempts to explain why individuals who feel stress and strain in their lives are more likely to commit crimes. And Agnew says that crime is due to a negative affective stage, including anger, frustration, depression, disappointment, and fear. And we've already kind of talked about it a little bit. If I'm sitting in my situation and I don't have money and I look around me and everybody's eating McDonald's and happy and doing their thing, I get mad, and I feel that I should have the same opportunity that everybody else has. And as we all know, in a society like ours, not everybody gets the same thing. So Agnew's strain theory tries to identify those things that kind of somebody into doing, either criminal activity or computer crimes, white collar crimes, etc. Some of the things that are aligned with it: failure to achieve positively valued goals, disjunction between expectations and achievements, the removal of positively valued stimuli, and the presentation of negative stimuli. And those last two kind of go back to your families. So I'm not getting a positive stimulus from my family, or my authority system is not telling me, what is right and wrong. Instead, I'm getting the negative stimuli, which is, it's not that it's not your fault you're poor, or it's not your fault you're the way you are. You deserve to have everything that everybody else has. Heck, you don't even have to work for it. You just, should be able to take it. And that's kind of what leads people sometimes into that crime, is, through the family. And then specifically, these theories analyze the impact of certain factors, such as peer group relationships, family relationships, and the failure in school on crime. So people that don't do well in school, people that don't do well in the normal structure of society, these guys are more likely to be involved in crime. And we've all seen the guys hanging out on the corner, and they're not in school, and you're like, if they would get into school, maybe we could get them on the right track. Some people don't want to go to school. Some people are in that rebellious state of, there's no point, because I'll never be able to leave where I'm at right now. They have that defeatist attitude, which leads them into gangs and several other organizations that feel more family oriented. All right, so now we're kind of moving into it's not the exact same as the strain theory. We're talking about learning theory. And learning theory says that people commit crimes, including computer crime, because they learn the attitudes, skills, and rationalizations necessary to commit these acts. So somebody that is good with computers may see that as being a way for them to be able to break out of their situation they're in. They may see that they have skills that others don't have, and they're able to do things that others can't do, especially with computers. Many times learning takes place with interaction with parents and peers. They find a mentor, they find someone that has kind of leads them forward, and they take on a role in that person's life that teaches them. This actually happens a lot in jail. When people go into jail, this learning theory of getting a better skill, or having a better skill, and learning how to commit an act that gives them another tool once they leave the jail system. So when they come back out, they're a more qualified or a better criminal. And then we have Sutherland's differential association theories. And again, if you're over on page 54, we have the 9 Sutherland's basically theories here. And Sutherland argued that criminal behavior is a function of learning, not the inability to obtain economic success. So basically what Sutherland is saying is, people instead are shortcutting themselves, and instead of going out and getting a formal education and trying, they're just saying to heck with it. I'm going to go out and I'm going to do what I want to do because, I can, and because I can hack, or because I can do things that other people can't do. I'm not going to worry about formal education. I'm not going to worry about careers, all that kind of stuff. I can make my living off something else. So he talks about five propositions. He's, first one is that criminal behavior is learned, and that's kind of everybody would imagine to see something like that in a theory, that someone just doesn't wake up one morning and go, oh, I know how to commit computer crimes, or I know how to commit a crime. You got to learn it from somewhere. And that criminal behavior is learned in interaction with other persons in the process of communication. Okay, so here I am, I'm in jail, I'm talking to another person, and they're telling me how to commit this crime, or they're teaching me how to commit a crime, and I'm seeing the value, and I don't see the risk in that same crime. So, for example, individual goes to jail for using a handgun. Obviously, using a handgun, it was a slam dunk, he's going to jail. While he's in jail, he finds out he could have committed the exact same crime, stealing money from a financial institution by hacking the financial institution, which is seen as a white-collar crime, non-violent, and probably would have reduced the risk that individual, or the number of years that person there. So he may say, well, I have the skill set for this financial fraud, and I like robbing banks and stuff like that. So if I could do it in a way that I can reduce my risk, well, then I certainly am going to learn how to do this. And the principal part of learning of the criminal behavior occurs with intimate personal groups. Okay, so again, close quarters with people, gang associations, friendships that form, mentoring situations where you have an older mentor that mentors a peer, or peer mentors someone to start becoming or doing criminal. When criminal behavior is learned, the learning includes techniques of committing the crime, which are sometimes very complicated or sometimes very simple, and the specific directions or motives that drive rationalizations and attitudes. So someone might become a part of a religious organization. That religious organization is fighting the government or fighting another organization, and while you're learning these techniques, or they have techniques to fraud the government, take away from the government the things that they don't believe they should have. So they're giving you this motivation and drive on the religious tenets of their beliefs. So you're going out, and so you're not really committing a crime anymore. Now what you're doing is you are doing something that's purposeful. You're no longer a part of a criminal organization. Now you're part of a religious organization that is fighting the government, for example. And then the specific direction or motives and drives is learned from definitions of legal codes as favorable or unfavorable. So as you're going through and you're looking at specific directives or motives of drive, um, the legal codes kind of come into it. How do you interpret something? Do you see it as being something that is against you? Is it something that you feel is I don't know, kind of like I guess recent thing we could say is the ban on foreign travel, and the ban on foreign travel didn't allow people to come into the United States. Well, people saw that code and immediately said, no, this is a ban on Muslims. So they interpreted that rule differently than the way it was actually written. Nowhere in that write-up did it say there was a ban on Muslims. But the inference is, based on the countries that were banned, they were going after a specific population of people. So looking at it from both sides, you can see how both sides would see it. And that individual then has to be mentored by someone. So someone's there to explain the rules to them. And that's kind of where you end up getting that person sometimes. A person becomes criminal because of the excess of definitions of favorable to violations of law over definitions of unfavorable violations of law. Again, there's government's bad, we're good, or the evil bank system. If you guys have ever watched a show called Mr. Robot, this is they have great examples in there of this, taking on the evil corp and, committing crimes against evil corp, but feeling like they're doing the right thing, getting back at the corporate entity. Differential associations may vary in frequency, duration, priority, and intensity. It all depends, when you start talking about the differential associations, you're talking about the quality, the quantity of your associations. You're talking about of how often someone may interact with people. Priority involves the importance of the relationship to the individual and the importance of the criminal or non-criminal today. And that's right out of your book on page 55. So this basically comes back and says, how do you prioritize? What's your duration, frequency that you are doing what you're doing? Being guided by the person you're being guided by, things such that lead you into the process of learning. Criminal behavior by association with criminal and anti-criminal patterns involves all the mechanisms that are involved in any other learning. You're going to learn, you're going to do either tactile learning, or you're going to learn, if you're doing lockpicking, he's going to show you how to lockpick. He's going to give you some tools. You're going to learn a lockpick. You're doing computer crime, you're going to have a computer. You're going to, hack into a site, and you're going to write some code, and you're going to do those things that allow you to do the type of crime that you're actually doing. And while criminal behavior is an expression of general needs and values, it is not explained by those, since non-criminal behavior is an expression of the same needs and values. So in this one here, we're not going to give you the right definition, and we're not going to tell you that people steal money for a specific reason, but people may have motivations that go behind why they do the things that they do. People don't look at it as someone else is out there making this money, or this evil corporation that you're going after. They have employees. We don't look at the ramifications of everything that we do. Okay, and we don't look at all the things that go into the crime that we've committed. If you're looking in your book here, and that little last line makes a lot of sense, which says, in other words, the need for money explains lawful as well as unlawful behavior. Okay, so we're back to the need of money. So we're back to our choice theory, which leads us into our needs and all the different things that build risk. So all the theories kind of start lining up and flowing along. All right, and Akers' social learning theory. Basically, Akers attempts to define social learning theory with 4 principles: differential association, definitions, differential reinforcement, and imitation. And if you are over on in your book here on page 56, Differential association, basically, what is it that you are doing with somebody? Um, are you being controlled? It's very much like um, how Sutherland uh, promoted his 9 theories. The differential association comes in and basically says that there is a behavior that is learned as well that goes behind it. And this can be something that takes you through many generations, or it may just be you're from this neighborhood, so therefore you're going to be a part of this organization. So Akers throws in that other side, the behavior side of it, for the social learning theory. And he has, again, he says that Sutherland doesn't really cover that, but Sutherland kind of does. If you go through and read all the different things in Sutherland, you can find that there are many like or commonalities between them. Skykes, Matza argued that the process of becoming a criminal is a learning experience. Um, According to their theory, most criminals hold conventional values, norms, and beliefs, but must learn to neutralize the values before committing the crime. Okay. Techniques of neutralization allow individuals to drift into criminality and then back into conventional behavior. So what we're talking about here is, how does someone commit a crime but then go to work the next day? How does someone move in and out of being a criminal if they're not a full-time criminal, if they just do it here and there? And this happens a lot in the pedophilia world. Someone drifts over into younger teens. They see that as a negative, leave it. But then there's that pull or draw for them to go back, and they end up going back, and then they come back out, and they go back and forth. Okay, so looking at their techniques, they're looking at 5 techniques. Denial of responsibility. So if we go on page 57 in your book, basically this was an accident. I got to this website, or I got to this thing because I was pushing buttons. I had no idea how I got here. I don't know how many times I heard that out of criminals. Denial of injury. Who got hurt? What's the, did this act really hurt anybody? So I'm looking at a child picture. So what child got hurt? And this is one of the reasons that the Supreme Court back in 2000 had to revamp the child pornography rules, because this argument was a successful argument. People would say, if I draw this image, who am I really hurting? There's no real victim here. It's just, you don't like what I'm looking at. So NMEC, or NCMEC, I'm sorry, National Center for Missing Exploited Children, spent a lot of time going back and putting faces and names to pictures, because these pictures of child pornography, they stay on the web forever and ever and ever. So what you do is you find images that of children that were abused. You go to NCMEC and you get the bio of the product. So when you go to court, you can say, yeah, there was a victim. There was somebody. This photo is the result of somebody profiting off of a crime that they committed, and there was an actual victim. And so the courts like to have that victim, or need that victim. And there's, in many instances, especially I don't know, in Florida and a couple other states, if you don't have that association, your prosecutor won't even look at it. Denial of the victim. The individual believes that the victim had it coming. All right, so this guy was doing bad stuff. He deserved to have it done to him. And there's a good little study in the book we might do as our discussion about taking down or anonymous taking down websites, or people taking down websites that promote harm. So like ISIS websites, things like that, by committing crimes on the internet with the thought that they had it coming. They deserved to get what they got. So there's no crime here, and obviously we know that that's not correct. Condemnation of the condemners occurs when the individual shifts the blame to the other person. Don't focus on why I did it. Look at what they did. Basically, the individual is challenging those who are condemning their actions. For example, look on the bottom of page 57 there. It says police are corrupt and parents take out their frustrations on their children. Why is everybody picking on me? That kind of reflects that whole attitude of, the cops are bad, the cops are picking on me, I didn't do anything wrong. You guys, you had to find something to do because you had nothing else to do today, basically. And then appeal to higher loyalties. This gets into our religious terrorism, our state-sponsored terrorism, and group-based. Here, what I'm trying to say is, I did it for something else. I did it for a greater cause. This didn't profit me. Why I did this was to help somebody. Why I did this was because I believe this group, its values and things that they wanted done needed to be done through me committing this criminal act. So again, looking at the different techniques of neutralization, why it's not a crime. Okay, and that's what neutralization, or the social process of neutralization, is basically getting rid of the crime. It's not that big of a deal, and this was very successful actually. In as I've mentioned a couple times now, in the white collar crime area, if you commit a white collar crime, not seen as that big of a deal. Put a gun in your hand, it's violent crime, you're going to jail. So again, neutralizing. What can I do to make it not so bad? And that's one of the attempts that they'll do. Process. Subculture, or set of values, norms, and beliefs that differ from the dominant culture. Main tenet of the subculture theory is that criminals, including computer criminals, hold values, norms, and beliefs that are in opposition to those held in the dominant culture. You've got one classic example of this, and you're looking at the Anonymous group. Anonymous is an organization that has a different set of values and beliefs. They do not tie themselves to any nation, party, any real affiliation other than Anonymous. They have their own thoughts, they have their own mindset, and they will go after people based on what their beliefs are, or what they think should happen. And they aren't worried so much about what the laws say. They believe when something is wrong, that it should be corrected. So their values are not always in line with our values, and they can be a very dangerous entity, because they may work with a terrorist organization one day and work with a nation state the next day. They don't care. They're there to do what they believe to be the right thing. And that group, a lot of times, people applaud them and say, well, look what they did to the pedophiles. They got rid of a bunch of pedophile websites. Well, yeah, but they committed a lot of crimes to do that, and we have to be very careful of that slippery. Subculture is a set of values, norms, beliefs. Originally, subculture theories attempted to explain gang formation and crime. This was kind of one of the tenet things back in the day when gangs became very popular in the inner cities. People started associating this theory, this subculture theory, to this group. They built their own basically political system. They have their own legal system. They have all their own stuff within inside of that little group, and they form their own subculture within our culture. And again, as you can imagine, gangs and organizations that work out on the web sometimes, have a completely different path than the legal stuff, or the legal side of us. Hackers. By rejecting the goals and opportunities of the opportunity, the hacker subculture provides a context in which hackers situation their actions. There are three consistent ideas, values that guide hacker behavior: technology, secrecy, and mastery. Technology is a real easy one. I'm smarter than you when it comes to computers. These are some classic guys that are very proud of who they are. They're technologists, and they have the ability and they have the technology to be able to do what it is that they're doing. Secrecy. The hacker. And we used to teach hacking. We used to have a couple blocks on hacking actually that we taught in the Army CID school, and there were basic things about the internet that hackers and people like that believe that should be free. the old guard hackers believed that the internet should be free. And when they started charging for things and putting passwords and protections on that, you saw a whole group of people rise up, basically in opposition to that, and fighting the ability for people not to have freedom on the internet. The internet should be a free place. And that kind of leads into your mastery of owning the internet. The mastery is kind of counter to the secrecy in a way. Hackers aren't secret. They don't want to be unknown. They want to be known. A hacker that's out tagging things leaves marks behind. They want people to know that they hacked the Department of Energy website, or they hacked this or that, and they'll leave their tag there. And of course, it's a pseudonym. It's not their real name, or but they want that notoriety. In their group, they want to be known as the best of the best, and that mastery of your skills and respect from your peers and your peer groups is very, very important to a hacker. Virus writers come from many walks of life and are typically wealthy enough to afford a computer machinery necessary to practice their trade. This is also one of the areas where you'll see state-sponsored actions. So a country that can afford kind of the best of the best and coders and etc. will write viruses as preemptive strikes or attacks against another nation. So my nation attacks your nation, and the first thing we do is we launch a cyber attack to hurt you by putting viruses on your computers. Criminal hackers, they write viruses, and a lot of them are just intellectual guys. The guy that released the "I love you" virus, out of MIT, he really, depending on how you go with his testimony, he really wasn't trying to take down the internet. He just wrote the code badly, and the code executed what it was supposed to do, and by executing the way it was supposed to go, it basically took the internet down for a little while. So virus writers are sometimes they're politically motivated, sometimes they're just simply out there to cause harms. A lot of people will say, well, why does Microsoft have so many viruses written against it? Because it's easy, and it's also Microsoft and Bill Gates are seen as the evil giants of the computer world, and therefore a new virus writer or hackers and people like that love to be a part of that whole let's go after Microsoft and cause them harm. Unfortunately, Apple's starting to catch up. People are starting to write code for Apple, even though it's the kind of the practice of it is not as widely spread, but it certainly is not unknown for Apple viruses and Android viruses and other stuff that are coming out. So viruses are they're a way of someone showing what they want, or showing who they are, showing their power. And sometimes the payloads are there for harassment, and sometimes the payloads are there for financial gain, but most of the time they do have a criminal event that happens with them. Reasons virus writers write and propagate viruses vary greatly, as we just talked about. All viruses writers share common learning experience in order to apply their trade. They all have to know how to code. C++ or have an understanding of the computer. If you're going to attack Microsoft Outlook, you have to understand the weaknesses of Microsoft Outlook. You have to understand the weaknesses of Microsoft Office and things such as that. So you have to have some idea of what it is you're. Virus writers come from many walks of life and are typically wealthy enough to afford computer machinery necessary to practice their trade. Again, this kind of comes back to not so much anymore. I mean, you do have to have decent machinery, but you can get a pretty cheap machine, or a pretty decent computer that can compile viruses relatively inexpensively now. So the days of having to have the highest and best and everything, really has been brought down in the recent, last couple of years because of just the availability of of computers that can process this type of files. Virus writers propagate viruses. I think I went backwards on you. Sorry about that. All right. Social control theory. So social control theory seeks to answer the question: why don't why don't individuals commit crime? What stops me from committing a crime? This theory assumes that people violate the law. The answer lies in the strength of an individual's ties to conventional individuals and society. Um, under this under this tenet, kind of think of it as, why do we wait for the red light to change at a stoplight and just instead of going through it? Why do we throw things in recycling bins instead of just throwing everything in the garbage? It comes back to that kind of social contract that we have with other peoples in our society. Um, could you commit a crime? Sure. Everybody here could commit crimes probably every day. You probably have an opportunity at some point, at a convenience store, somewhere else, where you put something in your pocket and walk out. You may be a good computer guy, and you may see someone leave their password or username or something that would be easily used to manipulate the system, but you don't do it. And these are all examples of why social control kind of comes in. That's our moral kind of compass, our right and wrong. And then the answer lies in the strength of an individual's ties to conventional individual society. If I'm an outcast of society, it's not going to matter, and I'm going to commit my crime. If I'm around other criminals, it's not going to matter because I'm not a part of the normal. I'm a part of a subculture within the society. But if I'm around law-abiding citizens that see the use and see crime as crime, well, then they're going to have an impact on whether or not that I want to commit a crime or not. God, Godfredson and Hershey argued that person's tendency to commit crime can be found in his or her level of self-control. Again, this has been applied back to the kind of the pedophilia examples. Why do people download child porn? Well, some say they don't have that self-control. They can't stop doing that type of criminal act. And self-control involves a person's ability to control his or her own behavior. Again, like we just talked about, if you don't stop, or if I don't stop myself, someone's not going to stop me. I make a choice. Again, going back to our choice theory, if the risks are not there to stop me, or I don't have that deterrence, well, then I'm going to commit a crime. But if I have a social contract with others and I have a sense of self-control, well, then I can stop myself from committing a crime. I can stop myself from doing something bad. So, and that's what self-control theory, really comes down to. Lack of self-control is caused by inadequate child rearing. Research has shown that individuals with levels of self-control are likely to view online pornography. Um, Basically, you go back to those six base forms, the stages that we go through that we talked about earlier, and those first four, again, are where, or the lack of those first four in our upbringing or your development years, without those in place, this is where the person ends up, not having that self-control or understanding of how to control themselves. So it's very important that they go through those stages, the Kohlberg stages, for the social development. So again, if I don't have that control, I don't have a good social contract. I wasn't told when I was a kid, this is bad. Then we have some issues. And I give you a real good example of self-control theory here is, the music and the radio industry. So I'm with a bunch of people, and we all agree that we don't care. It's not a crime to download our music. Who's getting hurt? So we neutralize. The choice theory is, there's really no risk of RIA pulling up and attack or taking me down because I'm not really worried about the radio industry or the music industry coming after me. So I don't have that great of a risk. So I apply all those things, and my buddies are all telling me, hey man, just download this file because I got this file and it's cool and it's great music, and who you really hurting? So the music, copyright violation or stealing of music is really a kind of a classic example of this. And then if you don't have those things stopping you, then you come down to you. Do you think it's wrong to do what you're doing? Do you have the self-control, or does your desire to listen to the latest song or the latest video outweigh, and you don't have that self-control to stop? Do you have to see that Muppets movie or that weird YouTube that that you're supposed to pay for, or, those types of things? So that's where you really see this social control theory kind of in place. And then last, terrorism is violence or the threat of violence used in direct pursuit or in service of a political aim. Karl Marx theorized that political change could not be achieved without conflict. The acts of terrorism aimed at critical information infrastructure are new tactics used to accomplish political change, defined by Karl Marx. In 1986, I was an instructor at the Terrorist and Tactical Action School in Fischbach, Germany, and a lot of the things that we taught back in 1986 have not changed. It's a small group of people within a culture or within a population that causes fear amongst the entire population. So one or two individuals can cause mass fear amongst a group. So if I can make you afraid to use something, that's terrorism. So if I blow up a bank building, people may not want to go to banks. If I poison the water, well, people might not want to drink water, and fear would grow. Or if I could take the internet away from Dave, kind of think of it like this: what if I took Facebook away from all the children for 4 days in the United States? Do you think there would be a conflict? Sure, one person could very easily be that instrument or that terrorist instrument to take down Facebook. That could be a terrorist act in the digital age, or take off the latest game that everybody's playing. I think when the was it Pokemon Go, and people were running around, and then the servers went down, and people just went crazy because they couldn't get to their Pokemon Go game. That was a great example of how our technology has become too much a part of our system and our place, because people are starting to rely on it. New psychological disorders, nomophobia, the fear of no mobile technology, no cell signal, Facebook disorders, where people have too many friends and they fear getting on Facebook because they don't think they can handle talking to all the people that are on their Facebook because they have too many friends. All these types of things are coming out. Social bullying, things like that have been going on, and things that we're going to talk about later on in the course, where people are use the technology to bully or take out their frustrations on other people through the technology. Children have killed themselves because of the fears of social isolation from social media. So if a child will kill themselves because they aren't liked on Facebook, if I can kill Facebook and take everything away from them, you would probably have quite a few children that would be in threat, or would definitely not do well through that time period. So terrorism, political theory, it's interesting. State-sponsored terrorism today. Again, we were in Estonia last month, working this very problem. Russia uses cyber terrorism as a part of or cyber attacks as a part of their structure now. It's a hybrid warfare model, on-ground attacks with kind of a pre-strike of digital confusion. So the internet and all these things are becoming very useful tools. And you got to remember, like Saddam Hussein said before he was ousted and put to death, was that every Iraq person should learn the internet, and because that is the way to defeat our greatest enemy, which at that time was the United States. And it's very true. A person with a computer and an internet connection is just as powerful anywhere in the world as anyone in our country with a computer and a connection. So it becomes a leveling thing for people on the kind of the battlefield. Combat multipliers is what we refer to it as in the military. So this ends chapter 3. Gone through the slides. This is the long chapter, and there are a lot of slides. So I wanted to go through and do an overview. We've been going for about an hour and 10 minutes on this presentation. So hope you have learned some stuff. If you have any questions, or if you'd like to provide me some feedback on the presentation, feel free to do so. You do that through the UTICA mail, and I will see you on the next presentation.